Good morning. It's good to be with you today. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or you're watching from at home, it's good for all of us to be together. As we prepare for worship this morning for the first of my 4-part Sabbatical Insights series that will continue in July, I offer these words by the Reverend Mark Ward. May they help ground us and center our minds and our hearts today for worship. In the first glimmers of morning, the world begins to take shape. First vague outlines, patterns of light and dark, and then colors, dun branches of trees or withered winter grass. The brightening sky bathes a familiar landscape with a glow as it sleepily reveals itself. Blessed morning. Oh, to have another day, to wake from whatever night thoughts dwell within, to rise and have the world unfold before us, where the possible unwinds into the actual, where dreams await their fulfilling, where we meet once again to live into the hope that gathers us. Blessed morning. Come, and let us worship together.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you here in person please stand as you are able for our chalice lighting? And if you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light yours with us now. Please join with me in reciting the words on our screen. As we kindle this flame, We recommit ourselves to nurturing the spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. And for those of you already standing, I invite you to remain standing for our opening hymn, Wake Now My Senses. If you're visiting us for the first time this morning, I'd like to offer you a very special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, you are welcome here. If you're visiting us for the first time in person, I invite you to stop by our welcome stand out in the foyer if you haven't already done so. And if you're a return visitor, you can pick up a more permanent name tag there. Also, if you've lost your name tag, that's where to go, but we're all trying to wear our name tags to get to know one another better. And if you're visiting us online, I invite you to fill out our visitor form. If you do this, you'll start receiving our weekly e-newsletter, which is called The Chalice. Please read through that. It came out on Thursday and is chock full of everything happening at UUFR, but I'll highlight two things. Our One Wake listening session will be this Wednesday, that's May 31st at 7 o'clock here at the church. One Wake is engaging more than 2,000 community members in listening sessions to guide its upcoming action agenda, and it's important that we hear from you. So come share your views on top pressures facing members of your community and meet and hear from other One Wake members. And then next Sunday, which is June 4th, we're having a really special service to honor our coming of age youth and our graduating seniors. So we hope that everyone can be here to celebrate our young people. After the service, we'll have a potluck. Please bring a dish to share. To sign up for either of these events, the one-week listening session on Wednesday or the potluck on Sunday, please see your weekly e-newsletter. But come even if you don't sign up. And now Michelle McIntosh, our congregational president, has an announcement.
Good morning. Our annual congregational meeting will be held 2 weeks from now on June 11th during our regularly scheduled worship time starting at 10:30 a.m. As usual, we'll be voting on our budget for next year and for new members of our board and nominating committee. We'll also be voting on important updates to our bylaws, which will extend our meeting time longer than usual. We expect the meeting to last a little over 2 hours, and childcare will be provided, and lunch will also be available during the meeting. UUFR members will receive an emailed notice of this meeting today, as required by our bylaws. This notice includes a link to an electronic copy of our annual report. We're not sending out physical mailed notices in an effort to save money and paper. And there is also an announcement for the meeting on the main page of UUFR's website. I was not able to get prints together of the annual report for today, but we will have annual report prints available later this week and next Sunday. Members are encouraged to attend our annual meeting in person at UUFR, but a Zoom room will also be available for members to listen to the meeting, to be counted for quorum, and to vote, but participation and discussion will not be possible. So if you want to participate in the discussion, it's really important to attend in person. And we look forward to seeing you. Hope you can make it.
Thank you, Michelle. And now I invite you to meet and greet your neighbor. If you see someone you don't know, please make a special effort to say hi. Good morning.
We're enjoying those conversations, but there will be lots of time to continue them during social hour. Let's go ahead and settle on down. Find our seats. Get comfy. Little by little. The gong is coming. Now it rings. This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and the sorrows of our community. We do this because we believe that a joy shared is a joy made greater, and a sorrow that is shared is made easier to bear. Diane Irwin and John McLean are celebrating their wedding anniversary today. They have been married for 6 years. Happy anniversary. The McCoy family is delighted to share that the 4 kittens they have been fostering for the past couple of months, Galileo, Newton, Copernicus, and Fibonacci, are thriving and almost ready for adoption through the Second Chance Pet Adoptions. Olivia Sonwain shares that she lost her precious cat, Reno, of 12 years a few months ago, and she misses him greatly. She says that she's also been having a tough time lately, and she asks that we keep her in our thoughts. Marilyn Clayton's car was in a pileup on 440 on Tuesday afternoon caused by road rage. Her car was totaled, but she luckily survived. Her head, her neck, and her internal organs are all fine, but she has 3 cracked ribs and many aches and pains. The road ahead will be slow going, as the damage, as you can imagine, is both physical as well as psychological. And she says that calls are welcome. John Manifold suffered a choking emergency last Sunday with our men's group, but thankfully recovered after members sprang into action. Art Lieberman called 911 while John McLean performed abdominal thrusts to clear his airway. Choking is a serious problem for folks with Parkinson's, but it can happen to anyone. John and Bev feel extremely fortunate and very grateful to Art and John. And we are grateful that you are still with us, John. So as we hold all of these shared joys and sorrows in our hearts, and we reflect on the joys and sorrows, fears and hopes of our own lives, let's be together now for a time of stillness and silence. I invite you to go ahead now and close your eyes if that's something that you wish to do. I invite you to breathe deeply and slowly down into your belly. I invite you to open your heart to that spirit within us, between us and amidst us, that calls us to a fuller, deeper, richer experience of life. After this silence, we will sing hymn number 15, The Lone Wild Bird. But for now, let's be together in stillness and silence.
Everything that we do here at UUFR is only possible because of the financial generosity that all of us show to this, our own congregation. It's now time for this morning's offering, and if you would like to make a contribution, I invite you to bring it forward, or you may also give using any of the methods that will be put up on the screen. Please be generous, and thank you. Today's reading is by Adrienne Marie Brown, an activist, a nonfiction and Afrofuturist writer, and an educator. As the former head of the Ruckus Society, she trained activists and organizers for migrant justice, environmental justice, and workers' rights movement. And these words are from her blog. Put your attention on suffering, which is constant and everywhere, and it is all you will see. Joy will come and laughter, but you will find it brief, possibly a distraction. Put your attention on joy, being connected and feeling whole, and you will find it everywhere. Your heart will still break. You will know grief, but you will find it a reasonable cost for the random abundance of miracles and the soft, wild rhythms of love. Return to love as many times as you can.
Loveliness to sound.
pickup choir, you're sounding amazing. I recently received a really wonderful gift from this congregation. The gift wasn't the kind that you unwrap and hold in your hands. Instead, it was a sabbatical, a 3-month break from my ministry here at UUFR. For ministers, a sabbatical is a sacred pause. It's a time when you step away from your usual work and you do things that help reconnect with the sources of joy and creativity in your life. This is to help you have a more fruitful ministry in the future. The idea comes from the wisdom of the ancient Hebrews, who let the earth rest every 7 years to renew its abundance. I had big plans for my sabbatical. I wanted to fill my days with all kinds of things that make me feel joyful and alive. So I planned to take a personal retreat to commune with my woo-woo side. That's what I call the more mystical side of my soul, the part of me that is more open to synchronicity, that seeks personal messages in nature, and sings to oak trees. Now, I don't let that part of myself out very often, but I wanted to let her play until she was covered in dirt and twigs again. Now, mind you, I'm not super outdoorsy, much as I would like to be, but I plan to go hiking and maybe even dust off my old tent. Those weren't my only plans, though. Like I said, I had all kinds of grand ideas. I planned to travel and explore Boston. I planned to relive my ballet glory days and take a dance class for the first time in a few years, and I planned to figure skate. And as many of you know, figure skating is one of my passions. I love that feeling of gliding on the ice, spinning and jumping, and expressing myself through movement. So I planned to make a lot of time for it during my sabbatical. Well, I wasted no time in getting myself to the skating rink, and it didn't take long for my carefully laid sabbatical plans to come crashing down. During my weekly lesson, I was practicing a loop jump when I slipped and I fell hard on the ice. Now, normally when this kind of thing happens, my ego and my backside are all that end up sore. But not this time. This time, despite the fact that I've fallen that particular way countless times before, I felt a sharp pain in my spine and I realized I had injured my back. And just like that, my sabbatical plans were up in the air. My doctor diagnosed me with a fractured vertebra, put me in a back brace for 6 weeks, and told me not to jump, twist, or bend. That meant no dance and no skating. Hiking seemed too hard, and camping would be painful with a sore back. Travel seemed iffy. Sitting up for more than an hour hurt, so I had no idea how I would handle flying or driving. I was disappointed and sad. I wondered, how could this have happened to me now when I had so much to look forward to? How could I enjoy my sabbatical when I was unable to do anything that I enjoyed? Now, maybe you've been there yourself before, not with a broken back from a figure skating mishap, but perhaps you've experienced the sting of having your plans shattered or things that you loved just snatched away. Perhaps an illness or an injury did it. Perhaps it was job loss or financial hardship. Whatever the circumstances, it can be a huge bummer to have to let go of something that you looked forward to. Well, I spent the next few days of my sabbatical in bed, icing my back and feeling sorry for myself. But I soon got kind of bored of self-pity. My sabbatical was a gift, a blessing of time that this congregation gave me. I didn't want to waste it by sitting around and being glum. So I reminded myself that I still had a choice about how to spend that precious time that you gave me. I could wallow in what I couldn't do, or I could savor what I could do. And so I picked this up. This is a list, or really a whimsical hodgepodge, of things that I wanted to do during my sabbatical, things that I had dreamed up long before my injury and had jotted down on here. There are about 70 items on this list. Things like eat mindfully, read wisdom stories, meditate, go for a walk, do yoga, declutter. And sure, some of these things were out of reach while I healed, but most of them were not. There were still tons of things that I could do that would nourish me even with an injury. Things that didn't require a whole lot of physical activity but still brought me joy, like writing a gratitude poem or reading a good book. So I decided, you know what? I wasn't going to let a busted back get in the way of having an absolutely delightful sabbatical. And two things helped me to switch mental gears like that. The first was an item that's actually on this list. It's right about there. It's watch movies. That was something I could do with a broken back, easy peasy. So I set about researching spiritually nurturing movies. I asked for recommendations from friends and colleagues. I think some of you gave me recommendations. And then I made another list, this time of all the ones that I found that were available on Netflix. And then I started making my way through them as I healed. Now, one of the movies that I watched was actually a documentary called Mission Joy, about the friendship between the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. In the film, the Dalai Lama talked about his journey of fleeing Tibet and how he kept his heart from hardening during his exile. He said that during that painful time, the Buddhist practice of reframing helped him. Reframing means seeing things in a new Buddhist perspective. The Dalai Lama decided to see his exile as an escape from the golden cage of the palace where he had grown up. He knew that if he had stayed, he would have been trapped in lonely isolation, and he would never have had the opportunities to learn and experience the world that he ended up having. And that reframing led to joy instead of resentment. And so I thought, you know what? If the Dalai Lama could reframe the immensely painful experience of losing his homeland, then I could reframe the experience of having my sabbatical plans altered by a minor injury. And so I decided to embrace that list and savor all of the things that I could still do. I let each and every day unfold organically, and I focused on seizing whatever joy was available to me in the present moment. Now, another thing that helped me was a really timely Facebook post by one of my colleagues. She's into something called hygge, and according to the Collins English Dictionary, hygge is a concept originating in Denmark of creating cozy and convivial atmospheres that promote well-being. Now, when I think of hygge, I think of warm knit socks, discussing good books with loved ones, fireplaces, tea, potted plants, and my cat sleeping in a sunbeam. Cozy, comfortable things, which I especially needed when I was recovering. And so I added several of those things to my list because in addition to being cozy and soul nurturing, they were also simple pleasures that someone with a busted back could enjoy. And as you saw earlier, 70 items, my list was soon overflowing with all kinds of good things. And I felt a surge of enthusiasm to plow through it and experience it all. Because now I wasn't just determined to have a joyful sabbatical despite my injury. I was actually excited by all of the things that were now in store for me. I had started to see opportunities for joy all over the place. One item on the list that was really fruitful for me was something called a portal ritual. This ended up shaping my entire sabbatical. The term comes from a class that I decided to take online during my sabbatical. The class was about shaping sacred spaces for ourselves and others. It suggested that when we create sacred space, whether that's sacred space in our physical surroundings or that's sacred space in our daily lives, we need to have a way to enter into that space. We need to have a portal through which we can shift into sacred space. And the portal reminds us that we are slowing down now, and we are setting aside some time to nourish our spirit. Now, the portal can be something physical, like a trailhead that you pass on your way to spend some time in nature. Or it can be a nice cup of tea that you make yourself before you curl up on the couch to read a book that sparks your imagination. Or it can be a ritual. I decided to go with the ritual. For my portal into sacred space, I started every single morning of my sabbatical by lighting a candle, closing my eyes, and listening to a recording of the hymn that we sang earlier, Wake Now My Senses. These were all simple pleasures that I could enjoy with an injured back. And as I listened to that hymn every day, I noted the words and phrases that were speaking to me that particular day. And then I spent some time scribbling or doodling about them in my journal. I explored why it was that those particular lines were touching my heart that day and what they meant for me. And I explored also what was stirring up inside of me in response. And I did this every single day for my entire sabbatical, and I never stopped drawing fresh inspiration from that hymn. Sometimes what bubbled up for me was a question. Sometimes it was a new commitment. Often it was some wild idea like donate 75% of your clothing and create a capsule wardrobe. Many of those items got added to my list. Whatever it was that came up, I let it guide my approach to the rest of the day. And so my morning practice inspired the books that I read, the movies that I watched, and the spiritual practices that I tried, all with the intent to go deeper. And that's how the line, as an example, keep with the web of creation your vow, inspired me one day to watch an inspirational docuseries about innovative responses to climate change all around the world, switch to laundry detergent sheets instead of those plastic jugs. And then I read chapters of a beautiful novella called A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers that made me feel reconnected to nature as I healed from my injury. And that book, in turn, inspired me to begin growing a fragrant tea garden on my balcony that would attract pollinators. I now have baby roses, lemon balm, chocolate mint, holy basil, lavender, pineapple sage, and stinging nettle, all ready to be transferred to pots outside. And another line from the hymn that really moved me was, "Honor the beauty and wisdom of time." Now, I'm the first to admit that I'm not the most patient person. I wanted to zip through my list of sabbatical activities and do them all right away. I felt this weird pressure, and I don't think it came from anywhere but inside myself, but a weird pressure to be super productive with my sabbatical time. Like I had to do lots of things in order to prove that I deserved it. And yet, time and again, that phrase from the hymn touched me. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. I reminded myself that the primary purpose of sabbatical is rest and renewal, not productivity. The best part of having such a long and lovely time to lie fallow like some ancient field was that I could take all the time that I wanted with each thing that I chose to do. No meetings or tasks stood in my way, and I could really savor them. And so I did. I lost an entire morning one day making collages to explore my understanding of the sacred, and I loved every minute of it. And another day, when I was finally healed up enough to glamp, if not quite camp, I turned a half-hour walk to a creek into a 2-hour forest adventure. I tromped through the woods, marveling at mossy stumps, mushroom staircases growing off of logs, and the green symmetry of ferns. And that woo-woo side was definitely free, and yes, I did, in fact, serenade a tree. And then I spent another hour writing the shortest poem in the world, but it was joyful. It was a poem that honored the natural beauty that I'd encountered and the lessons that I drew from it. Now, I could have crammed a whole bunch of things into that 3-hour period of time, but even though my time was not as productive, slowing down was more fruitful for me. And I kind of find myself wondering now if breaking my back may have actually helped to make my sabbatical more fruitful too. After all, it forced me to slow down and really savor my time. I had no choice but to do fewer things and enjoy them at a gentler pace. And that ended up being an amazing gift. It opened a door, a portal, to a different kind of magic, which I might have rushed right on past unthinkingly if I hadn't been injured. Would I still have emerged from my sabbatical time rested and renewed if I had spent more time skating, dancing, hiking, doing yoga, and things like that I'd originally planned? It's possible. But I think that without those things taking up as much of my time, my experience of the other things that I delved into was much richer. My injury meant that I had more time than I might have otherwise to explore my inner world, to explore my thoughts and beliefs, my dreams and my emotions, and yes, that woo-woo side. Being forced to rethink my plans gave me a chance and an incentive to try new things and find joy in simple things. There were a bunch of activities that I ended up doing and ended up absolutely loving that normally might have been pushed all the way down to the bottom of that list for just that reason. They were too simple. But now each of them got more time and attention than I might have otherwise given them. And I felt grateful for each thing that I could do because it was much harder suddenly to take those simple pleasures for granted. And because I had to grapple with the limitations that I was experiencing and with my disappointment, I deepened my understanding of joy as something that blossoms even in the challenging times of our lives. Delight, I discovered, is not dependent on our circumstances. So what do I hope for you this morning? I hope that something that you heard today stirred up a craving inside of you to feel for yourself some of what I was blessed to feel in my sabbatical. Not the broken back part, but the simple pleasures and the time. That gentle, mindful time when you can sink down into the present moment, immerse yourself in it fully, and discover the joy lying in wait for you there. So today I invite you to think about how you can make room for rest and renewal in your own life. In fact, don't just think about it. Mull over it slowly, savoring that process of exploration until you lose track of time. Jot down everything that comes to mind, no matter how small or wild, that might feed your soul. Turn it into artwork if you feel so moved. You may not be able to go away on a sabbatical for 3 months, although I wish that every one of you could have the chance to do so. But you can seize a sliver of your day and you can sow some seeds of joy there. Maybe you can try my portal ritual for yourself and light a candle while listening to your favorite song. Or maybe you can put on your favorite sweater and curl up with a good book. Or if good food and good company are what bring you joy, then maybe you can invite some friends over for a cozy dinner of home-baked bread and hearty soup. I'd also like to invite you to attend a series of mini retreats that I'm leading this summer. We'll gather together every other Saturday beginning June 10th, and we'll really take some time to nurture our spirits. And you can learn more about that in the e-newsletter. May you create portals just right for you that help you slow down and tend your soul. May the sacred pauses in your life remind you of life's simplest pleasures. May you lose yourself in the deep delight of whatever engages you each moment. And whatever wisdom that those moments may awaken within you, may you follow it wherever it leads. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so. And now please rise for our closing hymn. It's number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do. Please be seated. It's time now to bring our time of worship to a close, but as we extinguish this chalice flame, its light will continue to burn in our hearts. As we go out into our daily lives, let's remember the words of the Reverend Scott Taylor. Kick the ball, dance in the rain, Get lost on purpose. Play fetch with the dog. Fly the kite. Smell the flowers. Jump in the puddle. Pull out the paints. Throw the dice. Learn the two-step. Let life take you by the hand. Lean back and let the wind mess up your hair. Be where you are, open to what's before you. Behold delight, win the prize, and share it. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace.